Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Sawyer from All Now Podcast. Today, this will be episode 66 for you guys today. This will be a solo episode, just your host only this week. If you guys haven't checked out episode 65, is now available on our Instagram account, our YouTube account, our Facebook account, and our Apple Podcast account. And of course, that's going to be all four of the platforms that will be coming and will be provided for episode 66 this week. So let's get things started. The first segment of the day, I will be sharing with you guys my sleeper team to make this year's Super Bowl. So there's obviously a lot of obvious choices that a lot of people can make of who's going to make the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with my sleeper team that can play in Super Bowl 57 this year. And that team is the Indianapolis Colts. I could see them playing in Super Bowl 57 this year in Arizona come February 2023. That is going to be my sleeper team. Now, the reasons why the Indianapolis Colts are a sleeper team to get to this year's Super Bowl, they made a huge upgrade at the quarterback position, trading for Matt Ryan, not Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan. During the NFL offseason, they traded for him and got an exchange and gave the Atlanta Falcons a third-round pick. And getting a former MVP at Matt Ryan, where he's 37 years old, is obviously an upgrade to me and a lot of you guys watching and listening, an upgrade at the quarterback position compared to Carson Wentz. Now, Carson Wentz did do some things with the Indianapolis Colts last year, obviously not fulfilling what he was sent there to be. Quarterback that could get them back to the playoffs. Last year, he had 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and I said it last week on last week's episode when I talked about his stay with the Commanders this season. Obviously wasn't the guy for Indianapolis. I think Matt Ryan's definitely going to fit well in this Indianapolis Colts team. And I think he's going to be a reason why they be a sleeper team to get to the Super Bowl this year. I think the Colts are in a similar situation for trading for Matt Ryan and getting him at 37 years old from in a position they were in 2 years ago. The Colts have been trying to figure out their quarterback position and what to do at the position. It seems like every year there's a new starting quarterback for this franchise ever since Andrew Luck retired in 2019, before the 2019 season. So I think they're in a similar situation this year, how they were 2 years ago when they signed Phillip Rivers in free agency in the 2020 NFL offseason. Phillip Rivers was old. Everybody thought he was washed up. And come to it, Phillip Rivers looked pretty good for his would be his final season in the NFL. Led the Indianapolis Colts to 11-5 season in the 2020 season. Obviously, they lost in the wild card game to the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. But I think the Colts are in a similar situation where they're going to get a veteran quarterback that get them to where they need to be with the caliber team that they have. So Matt Ryan, in my opinion, can still ball. He's 37 years old. He's a former MVP of this league. And the first thing that people think of nowadays is Matt Ryan blew a 28-3 lead to the New England Patriots against Tom Brady about 5-6 years ago. But I still think of Matt Ryan as a playmaker in this league. Last year with the Atlanta Falcons, I think the Atlanta Falcons will be one of the worst teams in the league this year. But I still feel like last year, believe it or not, they were one of the worst teams in the league. He helped the Atlanta Falcons with that roster offensively and defensively. Helped them go 7-10 last season. Had a completion percentage of 67%, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions last season with a passer rating of 90%. That's pretty good for what the Atlanta Falcons roster looks like. They haven't made any acquisitions, any moves really to make themselves better this NFL offseason. So I believe the Falcons will even be worse this year with having Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder at the quarterback position. So hats off to Matt Ryan, in my opinion, for at least leading the Falcons to 7-10. And they were in playoff contention. They were flirting with the idea of getting a wild card spot for some time last year. So that's pretty impressive to me. With the Indianapolis Colts, he's going to be in heaven the way from where he went from Atlanta to a rebuilding team to a team that's ready to contend now. And with the Indianapolis Colts, he's going to be playing behind one of the best offensive lines in football. I believe they have the second best offensive line behind the Philadelphia Eagles this year heading into the season. And they have Jonathan Taylor at the running back position. I think Jonathan Taylor will be the best running back in football this year. I'm talking about, I think he will have a better season than Derrick Henry. Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. I think he's going to be the best back in football this year. Frank Wright loves to run the football, and that's been his bread and butter ever since he's been calling offensive plays for the last few years. Obviously, his time being the offensive coordinator with the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl in 2018, and he hasn't stopped since being the NFL head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. So running the ball to set up the pass is Frank Wright's bread and butter. He's going to do the same thing with Matt Ryan this year in Indianapolis. Their defense last season was absolutely tremendous. They finished second in the league with most takeaways behind the Dallas Cowboys last year. So this defense had the second most takeaways, interceptions, fumbles. They caused the most turnovers. Second in the league behind the Dallas Cowboys last year defensively. That's really impressive. I like what they did this NFL offseason, obviously upgrading at the quarterback position to Matt Ryan from Carson Wentz. They added defensive help as well, a lot of some defensive depth as well, led, by the way, of Stephon Gilmore, who they got their hands on. So they have a true number one corner back there in their secondary that's going to team up with Darius Leonard, Shaq Lawson, if he could stay healthy this year at the linebacker position. I think Darius Leonard and Shaq Lawson could be the best linebacker duo in football this year if they could both stay healthy. And they have a dangerous defensive pass rush that's going to be creating a lot of sacks, maybe a lot of forced fumbles on that defensive front. So their front seven is stacked. Their secondary is going to be upgraded with Stephon Gilmore back there at the cornerback position. They're going to have an upgrade at the quarterback position. This team is ready to contend now, and they have all the pieces to do it. Now, if you're wondering why I picked them in the first place to be a sleeper team to get to the Super Bowl, you might be thinking the AFC is going to be superly stacked this year. Talk about everybody in the AFC West has a chance to win that division. You're talking about the AFC North when you have the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to make a lot of noise in the AFC. You have the Buffalo Bills who are going to be right there in the mix. There's going to be a lot of teams contending, a lot of teams competing to get in the playoff spot, just to fight for a playoff spot in the AFC. It's going to take a lot for any AFC team to make it to the Super Bowl this year. But you guys have to realize that Indianapolis Colts, if they do their job and they could do what I believe they're going to do this year, they will automatically have a playoff spot within the first four seeds, because a division winner gets the first four seeds. They don't have to fight for a playoff spot, a playoff wildcard spot, if they just do their job and compete the way how I believe they'll compete this year, because they're playing the easiest division in football this year, and that's the AFC South. I just don't see the Tennessee Titans winning that division due to the fact that Ryan Tannehill can be easily replaced by Malik Willis if he doesn't get things going out there. They're going to depend a lot on Derrick Henry to run the ball this year. I don't know if a healthy, what kind of Derrick Henry we're going to get. He's coming back from that injury that he sustained last year in the early part of the 2021 season. If you depend on him to be a three-down back, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a toll on Derrick Henry. Might not even have a healthy Derrick Henry. A lot of question marks at the receiver position as well. They lost A.J. Brown. They traded him to the Philadelphia Eagles during the NFL draft. They cut Julio Jones, who is now a part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So now you have Robert Woods, who is coming back from a torn ACL as your number one wide receiver. That's a huge question mark for me. Not really sure how Austin Hooper is an upgrade at the tight end position, because he's been decent since his days. He hasn't been a standout since his days with the Atlanta Falcons. So it's going to be interesting to see what he could do at the tight end position. I'm not even going to talk about the Houston Texans. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in football this year, and we don't know what to expect with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence in their first year together in Jacksonville. So I have the Indianapolis Colts winning the AFC South. So they'll be guaranteed to have a first seed, second seed, third seed, or fourth seed in the AFC with a home field game. So that's how I look at it for the Indianapolis Colts. And if this team gets hot like they did towards the end of last season, even when Carson went to the quarterback position, this was a team that nobody wanted to see down the stretch. They had everything going for them. All they needed to do was just win one more game, and they failed to do it. I blame that on Carson Wentz mainly for not beating the worst team in football last year in the Jacksonville Jaguars, Week 18 in Jacksonville. This team gets hot this year. This is truly going to be a team that nobody wants to play come playoff time, especially in a wild card game. They could be in a situation, if anybody plays the Indianapolis Colts, they could be in a situation where the Dallas Cowboys were in last year, where they played the hottest team that came in to the playoffs on the NFC side of things, when they played the red-hot San Francisco 49ers. That could be the situation I could see the Indianapolis Colts being, the hottest team coming into the playoffs on the AFC side of things and shocking a lot of people on the AFC side. So definitely, quarterback production is there for Matt Ryan. I'm not expecting his 2017 MVP run, 2016-2017 MVP run, but I'm expecting a lot of production. I'm expecting a lot of wins. I'm expecting the running game to be a ground and pound, meat and potatoes. Jonathan Taylor behind that offensive line. I'm expecting the defense to have just as many takeaways as they did last year. Maybe they'll lead the league in turnovers this year. So I'm expecting a lot of positive things for the Indianapolis Colts this year, and that is the reason why they're my sleeper team to play in Arizona this year at Super Bowl 57.